Well, as the Senior Vice President for External Relations, I have responsibility for all our communications, media relations, and our government relations activity. And more importantly, though, as Vice President for Ag and Natural Resources, I serve as the Director of the Ag Experiment Station and the Director of Cooperative Extension. California agriculture is the most productive, by far, agricultural operation in the nation. And you know, the total farm gate value of agricultural production in California exceeds Texas and Iowa combined, and they're the number 2 and 3 states. So there's a long history of direct engagement by our folks in ag and natural resources with the agricultural community in this state. And the technology and extension activities have resulted largely in the productive capacity that exists here. It's a very complex issue in California. I mean, the fundamentals are 2/3 of the water falls north of Sacramento and 2/3 of the demand is south of the Tehachapi. So you have this dislocation of where the supply is and where the demand is. Overlaying with Clean Water Act issues and Endangered Species Act issues, there have been some significant reductions in deliveries, particularly south of the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta because of pumping limitations, and that's had a dramatic adverse effect on the agricultural community. It's had major socioeconomic impacts as well. I mean, that in a 4-county area of Madera, Fresno, Kings, and Kern counties, they estimate 550,000 people who don't know where their next meal's coming from. But the fundamental problem is we have an infrastructure for water that was built for a population of 15 million people, and we now are at 36 or 7 million people, going quickly to 50 million people, and we've got to improve our infrastructure in order to manage our supplies more efficiently. Climate change is certainly a critical one. Our expected population growth is a major issue. We're the fastest growing state in the nation. We're growing in terms of natural births. And so we're expected to, by 2050 be at 59 million people in California, which is another 23 million people. In the Central Valley of California is growing at about double the South Coastal Plain. Which means that we're seeing large growth in the most productive agricultural region. So the big issues that emerge from that are how do you develop a sustainable food production system in light of all of those factors. We also have some very significant issues in California that connect to health and nutrition. There is a national and international discussion of food today that is unlike anything I've ever heard. This notion of global food sustainability and how do we feed 9 billion people in 2060 and so forth is a dominant issue in the public policy dialogue. In terms of rural communities too, I think it creates the opportunity to revitalize the strength of the agricultural communities that oftentimes has been a relatively dominant source of economic activity, and will create opportunities as well for engagement in looking at new ways to process and market and distribute food with less waste and higher protein contents and so forth. That can only be helpful to rural economies. So I really think the next 25 or 30 years is going to be another golden age for agriculture in this country. I am Dan Dooley, and I'm working for Rural Prosperity. The WRDC, connecting you with the resources and programming that will strengthen your rural communities.